Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to our final review of Season 1 of The Mandalorian. This is Episode 8, Redemption. I'm Chris. We haven't got the little captions with our names on it now because you should know who we are by now. So I'm Chris with George, and we're here to discuss the final episode of Season 1. It's been a very mixed season, and we'll talk about the season sort of as a whole, as an 8-episode whole at the end. But there's a lot that happens in this one episode. This is the Taika Waititi directed episode. This was the one that I think both of us were looking forward to the most, based on Taika Waititi's track record with his directorial stuff before. It'd be interesting to see what his take would be with, doing Star Wars, especially rounding off the season as well. There was a lot that needs to be rounded up. There were some things that were tied up. There's a lot that's been left open-ended. This is a TV show, of course. It's a very successful TV show, and it will be coming back for a season 2, hopefully next year, we think. So what were your thoughts like going into this episode, and just general thoughts on the episode itself?
I thought 7 was the best episode by a mile off. Well, 7 and 3. We had a great cliffhanger ending, and there was not. I wouldn't say I was hyped. I had high expectation. I think it's a better word. Mm-hmm. Taika, of the names directing on this series, Taika's probably obviously the biggest name. He's had the biggest track record. Obviously, Jojo Rabbit's out in the UK on Wednesday, and obviously Jojo's been big in America. So he's done Ragnarok, he's done Marvel. He's become this household name. Pretty rare for a comedy director to become a household name and do Marvel and Star Wars, but he has, and I was excited to see his take on it because he's a director where, kind of like Marvel, and this kind of echoes my thought of this episode. He was able to put his own stamp onto the MCU. It was a Marvel film through and through. They obviously gave him his story beats. You need to end it. Obviously, this point, but they gave him free reign in getting to that point. I felt like Star Wars did the same thing. Straight away, the Taika Waititi scene, you can tell. The humor, the timing, I guess he's in it, to a degree. It felt like his episode from the get-go, and I was very happy with that. Because I haven't seen much of any of the previous directors doing live action. It's hard to tell, are they following orders or are they doing their own thing? That's more so that I didn't know who they were, I've seen much of their stuff. But certainly you get to Taika's, and it carried on. It was his own stamp, and it didn't feel too dissimilar to previous episodes, which I think was quite important. But I had a lot of fun with this episode, and I think this was the best episode too.
Yeah, and I mean, my opinion and your opinion on Thor Ragnarok differs quite greatly. I really didn't care for Ragnarok. I thought it was too comedic. I prefer the Kenneth Branagh's take on the Thor character when it was a little bit more serious in that first movie. So I won't say I was worried with this episode. I was intrigued, but I was worried in case it was going to go the way of Ragnarok, where it was going to be too comedic and it wasn't going to feel like a good sort of dramatic conclusion to the end of season 1 story. With the exception of with the first scene, which I did actually really enjoy, by the way, and we'll get into that when we get more into our review, it felt like it was mostly played straight to me. Like, it felt like everything that I thought would get tied up did. There were some things that I was kind of hoping I would get answers for, but obviously they're going to tie that into season 2 more, because you need some intrigue, I guess, to bring people back for next season and to set up threads going into, continuing the story. But I'd say 7 and 8 is like a part 1 and part 2 sort of together. And as it is, I think it's an incredibly solid finale. It probably is the best episode in terms of spectacle, tying all the emotional stuff together, giving all the characters really a nice arc. When you remember back to how I'm going to call him Apollo Creed, how Apollo Creed's character was in episode 1 with his relationship with the Mandalorian compared to how it is now. The Mandalorian as a character himself, how he's grown, his relationship with Baby Yoda, and how he's become more fatherly and more responsibility, and he's probably not going to do as much bounty hunting, we assume, going into season 2. So all these threads, there's been actual character arcs and conclusions for everyone, which is, you don't really get much of that now, especially, you don't really get it in episode 9, at least, not to probably what we'd like, but let's keep episode 9 out of this.
Yeah, let's not get the Raylers coming for us.
Yes, yeah, God, I hope not. Everything, it had spectacle, it tied everything up perfectly, and it's a real shame that this has ended now, because it felt like, right, we've just got into it, I want to see where it, and then I've got to wait a year now. But
yeah, it's because we're so used in this binging era of seeing everything and then either waiting nothing or waiting everything, except Game of Thrones. I cannot tell you the last. Peaky Blinders, I guess, I've really done weekly watches, but I can't remember the last time I did a season 1. I know that sounds really weird. The last time I watched a series at season 1 and watched it weekly, and then it stops. So I'm not sure how. Not serious, silly question. I'm not sure how the season is meant to end, because they leave a couple of story beats for season 2. Because in theory, you don't. If you know there's going to be season 2, they've confirmed it's fall 2020, which we all kind of presumed anyway. You can't close up everything, because then you've got to reopen things in the following season. So I think they've given us a hint. I guess we'll discuss later. Sort of one big story point, and then we've got 2 big revelations. One from episode 5, one from the final shot of this film, which will obviously not this film. Sorry, this episode we'll discuss later. So there's stuff they can definitely go forwards with, but they did a phenomenal job of tying this season's arc up. And I think not. I don't want to say there's an art to tell you. That sounds very rude and ridiculous. I'm just so used to the film format. Well, you're going to get a film, or you're going to get a trilogy. You know where it's going to go, vice versa. And this series answered it really well. And I think with Taika, I didn't expect it to be as mature as it was. Definitely the opening scene, we kind of said before, it reminds us of like Robot Chicken, sort of Family Guy. When it first started and the dialogue began, a part of me was like, oh, is this going to be one of those kind of scenes? But I had a lot of fun with it when I didn't think I would.
One of my favorite things in Star Wars, and maybe this does come from, like the likes of, as you just mentioned, like Family Guy, Robot Chicken and stuff like that. I love to see stormtroopers just like it's a day job, like it's just, part of it. And Rogue One kind of had moments of that a little bit, especially in the opening scene of Rogue One, where you've got Jyn Erso in the back of that prison truck, and you've got like a stormtrooper just kind of hunched over like he's ready for his lunch break kind of thing. Just elements like that where it kind of brings the reality back that these stormtroopers are actually all people, like in suits, like individuals. And I think this scene really captured that. If you're watching it all like beginning to end without like an episode break, then it probably does break the pacing of it a little bit. But I thought it was a nice little thing. And the fact that, again, like my paternal hackles were like on end when they kept punching Baby Yoda in the bag. It was brutal. It was horrible. I was like, these motherfuckers need to die now because they're hitting on Baby Yoda.
And I think that came with it. The moment they hit him, I was like, oh, that's dangerous. Like, you're not just hit baby. You're not hit a baby. You've hit Baby Yoda. Like, there are thousands of people that are going to go angry. And ultimately, story-wise, it made sense because their wait time enabled IG-11 to catch up to them. Definitely a Taika Waititi thing. I'm a nurse droid. The concept of that is ridiculous. So ridiculous, it worked well. I don't know if it's because he's got a New Zealand accent. It worked even better.
It kept reminding me of because I know he's also a New Zealander, but like Jango Fett, like the voice is completely, and like the slightly muffled robotic kind of sound.
So I enjoyed that. That's actually quite cool. All the bounty hunters are from New Zealand now.
Currently.
Fett in the special editions. But I had a lot of fun with that opening scene. But you're right. If you watch it as a whole, it'd break it up. But I think when you're on that episode basis, it was a nice intro. And obviously ends with IG-11 picking up Baby Yoda. Probably going to be another in-demand toy for next year now is Baby Yoda. You know, what do they call them? Like all the sort of men have their kids when they put the little babies. Like
yeah, I know what you mean.
Became like a big trend. I can now see all the merchandise of here's like IG-11 with Baby. Here's IG-11 on a speeder with Baby. It's going to be like one of those like toy things that happens. It was a great
part of that scene I was confused about though, because when the scout troopers are talking over the intercom and they can't go back to where they need to because they're waiting for things to happen. Don't they mention that Gideon's just killed like one of his, like a stormtrooper or something, or killed one of his guards? But then when it cuts back to Gideon, it looks like it's pretty much just picked up directly where the last episode ended, where he's just stood there. So that bit kind of threw me a little bit.
I think that was just weird comedy. Certainly he just killed an officer for speaking. It's going to be a while. I kind of laughed a lot of that because when you actually think about it, like when you think about the Empire, when Vader would kill an officer every time they do something. I think there's that class scene in episode 5 where someone his apology accepted as a Captain Eda, and all the men in the little basement computer screens were looking up at him, and they will like turn back around and do their work. It reminds me of something like they're probably used to seeing everyone die. but I liked it. Worked for the laughs, and I think it was a nice little intro for the heavy ending of 7.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if IJ would bring up Quill or anything. I have a feeling they might have shot a scene, but I guess the fact that we have him sort of entering at the last minute rather than here's him finding his dead owner, being angry, I'm going to nurse them. I like the fact they just brought him in, like, here we go, chuck him into the end of it and let the episode properly begin. I loved that. But you mentioned Moff Gideon and his speech. Through exposition, we had some very big reveals. I say very big reveals. They weren't big reveals. They were more character moments, I guess we can say. So we kind of got 3 that Apollo Creed is a magistrate. No one cares about that. What we care about is him drinking shots, which we saw. Very, very funny.
I liked that when he just cut to him, and it was just like he was trying to like steady his nerves as they were trying to come up with a plan. That was a nice little character moment.
It's when they grab, like, forget blue milk, it's like blue vodka in this bottle, and he's just like having like, and it's even before the fight begins, like you just see him like down one to run out. They said Cara Dune's from Alderaan, which was pretty cool.
See, there was a lot in that conversation that I missed because it does come very quickly, and there's a lot of names.
It's like here's a character that passed. Like it was like a quick trio bullet points. So they just said Cara Dune, you're from Alderaan, explains her hatred of the Empire naturally. And then they said the real name of the Mandalorian, which I've forgotten already. The main thing is Din something.
Din Djarin. Din Djarin.
The main thing, it's not Boba Fett, so that's that part done for the time being. Pedro Pascal did say it about a month ago in an interview, but no one really cared because he didn't say, obviously, a famous Star Wars name. I like the fact it's original, and then we have the completion of his origin, I guess you can say, the Clone Wars scene. What
did you think to that? Because from how we because we got like fragments of the flashback building sort of throughout the series, and we got the last one that we got was the one with the super battle droid, and then it looked like we were going to get some kind of big reveal, and then we get the full thing in this one, and it's just the bounty hunters just show up and pick him up. I don't know if you was expecting something a bit more than that, because I kind of got that was where it was heading anyway. It felt like they were bigging up to some kind of big, amazing, dramatic reveal of a character that we've seen maybe in the films or something like that. And as it was just kind of, oh, well, I knew that already sort of thing.
For a split second, I thought it was going to be Moff Gideon. Purely because it says, oh, it's Moff Gideon. Only one person has ever known my name. Yeah. So I was expecting the hand that comes out to grab him was going to be like Moff Gideon in like some like Republic armor or something, which would have been really weird but really cool. They went with the Mando. I wasn't disappointed. I didn't actually notice this in any of my. I've seen this episode twice. I didn't notice it until someone said it online that the Mandalorians that come and save him are Death Watch. Now, if anyone that's seen Clone Wars, actually it's just Clone Wars for this. I'm going to say this a couple of times this episode because it's a bit of a big revelation. They are like the terrorist group. A lot of story arc points come from them. Just quite interesting that he's raised by the villains in theory. And obviously, there's a scene later on when they discuss Jedi, which we'll get to.
See, I don't know much about them because I didn't know it was Death. I don't know anything about Death Watch. I've seen bits of Clone Wars, but it's been ages ago. It looked like they were liberating that town. So are they kind of a faction that work on their own means and save who they want to save? And
so, I would recommend everyone to watch Clone Wars. Albeit there are some very bad episodes, but there's some great ones. The Mandalore stuff's interesting because it added this new dynamic. So what I'm trying to say is Death Watch were basically, when Clone Wars comes into it, the head of Mandalore, the planet, is a pacifist. And because Mandalore has always been about war, the greatest soldiers in the world, you had a lot of, led by a clan of the Vizslers. I'm trying not to go into too much backstory. They obviously disagree being pacifist. They want to fight their soldiers, their warriors. It's their birthright to fight kind of thing. So essentially they're a terrorist group. Picture the Death Eaters.
Right, okay.
In their own weird way, like a lot of people support them and they agree with their ideas and their philosophies. So a lot of people turn to them and they can paint themselves as good guys. So obviously saving this Mandalorian child because they did hate the droids, obviously they all hated them. They wanted to, I think, don't take my word for it, I think they wanted to fight in the Clone Wars, which is what led to this whole pacifist aggravation, etc., etc. Really good story arc. But the main thing of Death Watch, so Jon Favreau was the voice of the leader. he has a weapon called the dark saber, which we can get to in a point. But Death Watch were kind of a lot of people liked them from Mandalore, so them liberating and they would gain support by helping out fragments of the place. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna have to watch the art.
I really want to. I don't want to wait for Disney.
More history to it than I at first realized. I thought it was just there's a group of Boba Fett's from Mandalore.
That's what I used to be like. Literally until Clone Wars, I thought, it's just Boba Fett's. What I will say, without advertising sort of Clone Wars and Rebels, is Mandalore is the only planet / people that have had like full development that doesn't need to be tied into like the main episodic films. If that makes sense. They've done a lot across multiple series.
I will say though, like I know we're going to like talk more about it at the end, but the reveal of a certain weapon at the end of the episode, I think that they are going to have to explain that in the series because average Joe watcher on Disney was probably going to see everything like that. I think I'm the kind of person that will go out of my way to watch some episodes or watch some YouTube videos and everything like that, but not everyone else is going to do that, so it will have to be explained in the show. But I get if you have watched all this stuff, it's just going to enhance your enjoyment of it even more.
What I would say, that reveal at the end, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, that reveal, it's not for the people that watch the animated shows. It's that kind of, like some Easter eggs as like, here's a bit of like fan service because you stuck with it watching them, and it will be included in the series. And obviously when it gets to the next series, it will be a case of they're going to explain this properly. Because obviously there are a lot of questions to be answered as to how it's ended up in Moff Gideon's position, which is very interesting for me. So naturally the conversation will have to come between characters or whatever, using its, you kind of mentioned a weapon. My dad's like, it's a lightsaber. I was like, it's not. I was like, but I'm not going to sit here and make you study things. It's like, it will be explained in season 2. I'm very excited for that, without getting into it too much. But
as long as they don't say like, so Gideon, how did you get that weapon? A good question for another time, and then it's never explained.
It could have been a Jarrah at the end of episode 1, with episode 8.
Yeah.
But
I knew what it was because, as I said, I've seen bits of Clone Wars and I remembered it from watching that, but I didn't know the whole history of it. But it is intriguing, like especially because like the history you've told me of the blade, the significance of what holding and wielding that blade means to Mandalore as a whole. So that should be really cool. Going back to Gideon, though, I did really like. I wish we could have got more of him. I think how he was sort of bigged up and casting that actor as well, and especially because he does he absolutely kills it in Breaking Bad. Like he's absolutely terrifying. I was hoping we'd get more of him, and I do feel that we've talked about the episodes that are kind of pointless in the middle of the series. If you remove those, it's a shame that because we could have got more time establishing him. I like his personality, and I can only assume that we're going to get more of him in season 2, and this was just an introduction. But I kind of wish we'd have got more of him because as it is, he just kind of stands there and delivers a speech. But what I will say is that he's very different from all of the other Moffs and Imperials that we've seen before. The fact that he even said, like, I will give you till, nightfall or dawn and to make up your minds and then I will return. That's not the MO of, like, usual Moffs or Imperials that we've seen. Usually it's just like, right, decide now, otherwise we're going to use some kind of ATST or AT-AT or some kind of cannon to blow you up right now. And he didn't seem quite as... I'm not going to say pantomime villain like some of the ones in the original trilogy, but British kind of. It was very, very different, and I quite like that he has a different dynamic. Because don't they say that he was not excommunicated? Don't they? Isn't there a line that he was? They thought he was tried for war crimes or something, but he escaped, which is quite cool.
I really like seeing him. They did big him up a lot. We kind of guessed it that he's been used so late at the end of the season. It's either going to be a waste of time or it'll be the big bad for season 2. I found him quite interesting. And what you mentioned, he seemed a bit different, and I love the fact Apollo Creed. Oh, can we make a deal? He's there like, if you're asking you to trust me, the answer is no because you turned on my deal with you. He's like, you can choose to step out that door, but you can't trust me. Straight away, it's like that's a good villain. Like,
but he's telling it how it is. Like he's not. He's not trying to double cross or anything. He's being straight up honest, which is really...
And he looked like a badass. It's Gus from Breaking Bad. He's got a really slick 70s mustache. I cannot wait to see more of him. I had a lot of... Like I said, he had very limited screen time. I think he's made the kind of correct... I don't think as much I would have loved more from him. If this means we're going to get a massive big bad for like like how Breaking Bad. I guess it's actually a great comparison because it's the same actor. He kind of popped into season 3 for a little bit, didn't he? He kind of cropped up here and there, and then like boom, the main villain for the next season. It's very traditional, and I think it should work better. If they'd have bigged him up for 4 episodes, it would have been weird if he kind of was fine at the end of it all. But I think looking back, my issues are with the filler episodes more so than not having enough of Moff Gideon. I think the way they used him for the scenes, for the story-wise, it worked well. And there's obviously questions that need to be answered. Obviously, we still don't know much about Baby Yoda and why they need to use him, which obviously I think will tie into more in season 2 because I think season 1 as a whole, it's the character arc has been obviously the Mandalorian. They've got this episode 1 first scene, Stone Cold bounty hunter killer. Season finale, he lets a droid take his helmet off. This is the guy that spent 8 episodes saying how much he hates droids. Now, what I found really interesting with the flashback, obviously Clone Wars is a children's animated show. Prequels, people get shot. It's not a bad thing. There was something really dark about seeing a super battle droid shooting people, lying down on the floor, and that's something that we've not seen in Star Wars. I'm not saying it's great because it's sadistic, but it gave you that war vibe.
I'd say the only time we've ever got close to that is in Rogue One on Jeddah, where there's that screaming child and like Jin runs and grabs her, and it felt very, especially watching it at the time, everything that was going on in the news, it felt very sort of akin to that, like modern times. But I agree, it was that different feel to it. And it felt like there was more stakes and more weight to it.
Yeah, and I think you can understand why, as a like a 7-year-old kid, why he distrusts droids, hates droids so much, because he had to witness that. And ultimately, his parents, I think, got killed. Would you say a rocket launcher?
Yeah,
that was a pretty loud bang. The second them doors shut, they didn't hide away from him. I thought the flashback scene was done well with that, but it was really cool to see super battle droids. I don't know if they were CG or if they were motion capture, but they looked a lot better than they did in 2002. They looked scary as well, which is what they never had before.
Like the T-800s a little bit in like the future glimpses of the Terminator films.
We'll get to Terminator later as well, I guess.
There's Terminator comparison,
But no, I thought it handled it well. I know we've kind of completely gone off scale talking Gideon and the rest.
Should we bring it back to Baby Yoda then? Because we get like another cool force power reveal.
We got a better gif of him on the speeder bike. Is the best Yoda gif of the series.
Oh, it's the little baby noises he makes.
It's just him on the speeder bike with his ears flapping in the wind.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of time for that.
But one thing that did strike me, because I mean they did set this up in the previous episode, like Mando gets injured and he's like bleeding out, and I'm just thinking, well, Baby Yoda could just heal him. Like, why doesn't he just heal him? Like, once you've set that up as a plot mechanic, it's then never used again. I don't know if it's because they didn't want to take the helmet off with everyone around, including Baby Yoda, or I'm not really sure why that is, but we do get the cool force power reveal. And again, I was waiting for that force theme to kick in, but I know it's not, because I know it's a different score. But the bit where like the flamethrower comes in, I really like the design of that flamethrower trooper, by the way. I don't know if that's because I looked at it and it looked like a clone trooper because of like the color on the helmet. I didn't know if it was some kind of war paint that this like one guy had put on his helmet or something like that. But the force power and deflecting the force back, it
was really well shot, because you knew Yoda was going to do something, but it was the moment that his face like pans up from the middle, like it just flicked out like that, like his body, and it's amazing. It's Baby Yoda, and it worked. They haven't milked his force power scenes in this. Like, I don't think a lot of the time we don't really know. I don't think he knows what he's doing. He's just using his mind to save them, whatever. But I like they didn't go back to the healing. I really liked the scene. For a moment, I thought he was going to die. I know that sounds silly because we're getting a season 2, but
I was just going to bring that up. I actually felt like these characters were in peril. Like any of them could be killed off at any point, which is really rare now, and especially with something like Star Wars, where you either bring characters back who have long dead or something, and there's not really any weight or stakes to anyone dying, especially with like Marvel as well, kind of thing with the comic book films. It's like, oh, we're just going to go back and bring them back. But no, I was kind of with you there. I was like, are they going to kill off Mando? Because
it was more the blood at the back of their head. Like, oh, he's fine, and then it's like, oh, blood. I loved that. I loved the scene of IG-11, where it's like, no living thing can take my helmet off. It's like, well, I'm not alive, and I love the fact they didn't milk the reveal.
I don't know what people were expecting because we all knew it was Pedro Pascal, so it is just kind of Pedro Pascal. I know a lot of people were kicking off about like a certain YouTube channel, like Star Wars channel, that he put that in the thumbnail, and everyone was kicking off like, "Oh, you've spoiled the reveal." I'm like, "Well, it's Pedro Pascal," but it was a cool moment nonetheless to see him, take the helmet off.
And I think what I liked was that, not to criticize the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, whenever his mask got ripped off in the final battle, that mask stays off for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And it's not just Spider-Man. It's very common superhero films.
Got to get more celebrity face time.
Yeah, it's that kind of vibe that we need to, once the mask's off, you need to see him. I love the fact that, the mask went off, he repaired him, said a line or two, and then next scene, mask back on, job done. It would have been easy for them to, well, the helmet's off, I'm going to keep off the next hour now. I like the fact they didn't do that. I like the fact because in theory, they needed to reveal his face. I know the whole point of the show is, we don't need to see what's under the mask, but
yeah,
when you've got Pedro Pascal as well, not that we need like a Dave Prowse conversation, but I understand why they chose to have someone different under the Darth Vader helmet than Dave Prowse for the big reveal. But getting Pedro in to play this bounty hunter, I thought that worked well, and we get to see him and put it back on. So
I'm curious as to how much they used Pedro Pascal, like if he was in that costume all the time, or if they just got like a body double and then he just supplied the voice over the top.
I read that he was around for most filming, but I'm sure I saw an article about a week or two ago that they reckon that episode 4, which was the Bryce Dallas Howard one,
wasn't it?
Yeah, I read something that because he did a stint on New York doing King Lear last year. I think I read that he missed a week or two of filming for the first batch of rehearsals. And they had a body double in for him, and obviously he came back, did a couple of days, and obviously did the voice as usual. So I'm quite intrigued by that as well. I think he seems like the kind of guy that would want to do most of it. I can't imagine anyone getting cast in Star Wars and then being like, I don't want to be on set.
I'm just thinking about in terms of costage, right? For like to get a celebrity and constantly paying them their wages. If you can just get sort of average Joe off the street that's the same height and the same build, and pay them a pittance and just get them in Star Wars, as opposed to getting Pedro Pascal, star of Game of Thrones, to just essentially be behind a mask the whole time.
I don't know. It's a weird one, but I think he strikes me as the kind of guy. I don't think it's any footage from Celebration when he went into the meeting room thinking he was going to play like just a role, like a bounty hunter, and then they said, "Oh no, we don't want you for a role. We want you to play the Mandalorian." And like he said, like that was like the best meeting of his life.
Yeah.
In fact, he went in for an unknown audition for a role in a Star Wars TV series. They're like, no, we want you to play the protagonist. I mean, obviously, I'm talking for me. I'd do it. Not that I could, but
do you think we're going to get more flashbacks of him either as a kid or him as an adult, sort of without the mask on? Again?
I'll talk about that when we get to season 2 at the end, because I think there's a potential for it for a plot point. Actually, I can kind of talk about it now. I have a feeling that obviously the Darksaber ties into the history of Mandalore. I think it'd be cool if, I can't imagine. I think he'll have to find out, as you mentioned, they'll have to explain it. The heritage, you don't need to know the entirety of the history, but the concept of how important it is for Mandalore. I can imagine the fact they've chose Death Watch to bring him up. There could be some flashbacks to Death Watch, to Clone. I don't necessarily think Clone Wars, but I can imagine a story being told, maybe with him giving, I've heard of it or I've seen it in use or something like that. I don't think it'd be massive. I think the main point of flashbacks is done, but I could see them being brought in to help with something like that. I like the idea of them telling the story and showing it. I know that sounds so plain, but you can have someone just talk exposition about what happened. But if it's going to be something detailed, then do what they've done in this series, go for it, because they've got the budget to do a flashback, and visually I think it's stunning as well. I would have hated for them to have, season 1, my parents were killed by droids in the Clone Wars. You could have said that, but to get the visuals of what happened, that was really cool to see the droids, but also it gives you that character of like, he had to witness all of this as a child. So I'd like to see something, but only if it's relevant to the plot, not for the sake of having a flashback.
I think that'd be a really good way of doing it, actually. Like, cast a kid who's, they might even be able to cast the same kid if they wanted to, like just a couple of years older, show his training as a foundling in the Mandalorian, learn about their culture, learn more about those characters that are just killed off screen when we get to this episode, and then you can bring in the history of Mandalore. It seems like if season 2 is going to be around the same kind of episode length, like 8 episodes, maybe that will be too much stuff to do, like the Mandalorian stuff do that justice, and the Baby Yoda stuff, where it looks like we're kind of teeing up to see a Yoda homeworld, which it sounds like where we're going with that. Then you've got Gideon into the mix and developing that. So there's a lot of stuff, which is good. There's a lot of stuff they can do, and there's a lot of these threads that are foreshadowing to come up, but they could probably stagger it out over a couple of seasons. I think have a season dedicated to one sort of story beat and develop that and flesh that out is probably going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, you dropped me a message the other day. Like, I could see this as a trilogy of series. I'd never thought of that, but when you think of Star Wars, you think of trilogies. Not that we need a 3-season for Obi-Wan or Cassian, but 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. Kind of, you know how like Stranger Things, they call it Stranger Things 1, Stranger Things 2. I would love a 3-series deal for Mando, because I don't want it to go on like TV where it's too long. A concise trilogy of TV would be really cool. And I give them a couple of years to bring up a new series idea or film idea, whatever they fancy doing. But I think everyone's invested in this to be able to do that now.
And I can imagine, Disney are just, they don't need money, but I can imagine them, this is really successful. This has done really well. Let's put more money, even more money into a season 2. I know it's already got a massive budget, and the stuff in this episode looks equal to the movies in terms of visuals. Like, my God, I know I'm jumping to the end, but the scene where Mando latches onto the TIE fighter and he's like swinging around. Awesome spectacle. Better than some of the movies in some regards. We've had a comment from Andrew Cates who says, season 1, Mando gets an armor upgrade and jetpack. Season 2, Mando gets the dark lightsaber. The video game setting is strong with this show. I do see that video game comparison there. We knew he was going to get the jetpack. We knew it was going to happen. I did think it happened quite quickly. I think they could have done that in season 2, but because they mentioned it earlier in this season, I'm not opposed to it happening in this one. I do think it's also all of the people in this, like this clan, this creed, this Mandalorian creed, who are living underground. They've all been killed bar one, who's the sort of blacksmith member of the group. And they say that they were killed by Imperials and stormtroopers and things like that. We see a whole room full of stormtroopers come in to take down this one Mandalorian chick at the end. And she wastes all of them in typical fashion, because stormtroopers are, by design, terrible. Nothing can tell me how many stormtroopers went into this room and killed all of these guys who are meant to be top, especially when we saw them with jetpacks and flamethrowers and all these torpedoes and everything like that. So I was a little bit disappointed for me to learn that all of these characters have sort of just died off screen, apart from her.
I was in this. I thought at the start it wasn't a joke. When all the helmets, I was like, "Oh, that's a pretty neat and tidy pile they've done on purpose." But because they kind of mentioned at the end of episode 3, we'll need to regroup and find somewhere new to go. So I didn't know if they were going that. But when she said, the Imperials came down. Now, whether again this could be something, I'm pure speculation. If season 2 wants to chuck a flashback in with Moff Gideon and the Darksaber, that'd be pretty cool. I've got a feeling that they'll keep some of them alive. I can't imagine the Jon Favreau one not wanting to return, because everyone seemed to love him in War Machine. It was a very weird thing to do, and you're right. When you have that kind of the Donnie Yen scene from Rogue One, it's like that crossed over with is it not Old Man? What's the Old Boy? I was thinking Old Boy. The fact a stormtrooper was melted, he was thrown into a pit. You hear a scream, and the body just fly down.
I saw that, and I was like, someone needs to go into that. So hit the quick time event near the smelting chamber and just throw someone in.
It was a brutal scene, but you're right. It was very quick and sudden. Like, it reminded me of a film where everybody died. We're like the only saviors. What film's done that? That's going to really annoy me now.
Probably a few.
There's probably.
I know what you mean. We've seen it in something. But
I've definitely seen it, and it's been it's really annoying me. I need to try and change my mind, so I'm going to sit there myself here.
We'll move on then, but she's kept alive, and how it kind of lingers on her at the end. I expect that she'll probably come back in season 2 or something. She basically sets Mando on his quest, like, this is the way. You got to be a dad to Baby Yoda now, which is fine, and then you got to try and help him get back to his people and his homeworld and find out. I know we don't want this, but maybe find out a species name in season 2. We probably are heading that way. We probably will get that, but I'd be fine if we don't.
I'm happy with a planet name. I'm happy with a planet. but please not the species.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like ET, where there's like hundreds of them in a field waiting for their baby to come home. I can't imagine Frank Oz wanting to do that many voiceovers as well. It was a very, because I kind of assumed they'd go that way, that he's accepted he's the father and he knows he can't carry around the galaxy with him. So as an arc goes for a season, exploring to find a planet's quite cool.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. And I think we're going to have Moff Gideon, chasing them for the duration of this season, which could also be very interesting. That's clearly going to be the main plot point. Drop Baby Yoda off back home. Obviously, we might find out some more revelations.
Back home. No way are they going to give up that pairing of Baby Yoda. I mean, Baby Yoda has taken the world by storm. Everyone loves Baby Yoda. People who probably haven't even seen Mandalorian know of Baby Yoda just from being on Facebook and on news feeds. Like, that's how much this one character, like, forget episode 9 stuff. Everyone's just like, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda. Every single day. I can't go a single day without seeing a Baby Yoda meme.
I can't remember the last thing in pop culture, whatever it is, to have been as big as Baby Yoda. There is nothing. I've sat there thinking, you get the odd music video every 10 years, like, what's that awful one of the Asian guy? Gangnam Style. Oh, yeah. It's like there's this one mythical, like, not meme, this one incident becomes global every few years. And I think Baby Yoda has nabbed it this year.
The real test will be to see, now that Mandalorian's finished, will they continue? Or will it sort of die off and then pick up again when season 2 comes out? But I think, especially we're getting Disney Plus in March, so that's going to pick up a lot of new fans that probably haven't seen it already. You've got the merch coming out around May time. That's going to be huge. I'll be picking one up. I know for sure I'll be picking one up. And then by the fall, you're going to have it all again. So I do think it's going to have staying power, definitely.
Oh, all they need to do at Star Wars Celebration in August, there'll obviously be a trailer. Forget a panel. All they need to do is just bring out the puppet.
That'll bring the house down.
Yeah, you could just bring it out for like 3 seconds, and there won't be a moment ever like that. Forget footage, forget trailer. Just seeing it in the flesh would be remarkable.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda is here to stay. When that merch comes out, like I said, you mentioned, I've got family members that have never watched Mandalorian that have watched the finale just because Baby Yoda's in it. Which annoyed me. They didn't watch the other 7 episodes, but everybody knows that Baby Yoda is, the big deal. He's everywhere. People at work that I know that hate Star Wars know who Baby Yoda is. Someone in my office, he said, "Oh, I will watch Mandalorian when it's out in England, but I've watched a compilation of every clip of Baby Yoda." So I've got a lot of respect for that. It's just, there's not much I can say. It's like a huge storm that I've not witnessed. I'm trying to think of some things that have been as big as Baby Yoda, like pop culture wise, and that's certainly there to say. I can picture it in 50 years Andy Warhol photos of like 4 Baby Yodas together, or like one of the "We Need You" in the wall things of Baby Yoda's face and hands. It's going to be everywhere.
We've got Andrew speculating about the future of Mandalorian, especially surrounding the Baby Yoda character. He says it'll probably get revealed that Baby Yoda might be the last of that alien species.
That could be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like the war has come to that planet or something and wiped them out, or
Yoda had killed them all to ascend to the throne. Yoda and Yaddle's child.
I would quite like it if he is the last one, because then I know there's probably loads of other Mandalorians out there, and I know that blacksmith Mandalorian chick, she survived, but if you could have an interesting parallel there where Mando is the last of sort of his kind, and then Baby Yoda's also the last of his kind, that could be an interesting way to take that storyline. But you just know that episode will be huge when they get to a planet that looks exactly like Dagobah, probably, and you've got hundreds of Yodas. You wanted one Baby Yoda, you've got like a whole village full of Baby Yodas.
I'd be happy on Endor. They crash under a plane and like outpop like 100 Yoda. I don't think I could cope. I mean, I've said this to you before that Yoda's not my favorite Star Wars character, not by a long shot. I love Baby Yoda, but the original Yoda I've got a massive respect for it, but I've never been a massive fan. I am excruciating at the pain of seeing more than 2 in the same room. I don't want to see that. I'm really down with the idea of it being the last of his species. Do you think they'd make it to that planet?
It'll be that really annoying TV thing where you set up for like, oh, we're finally going to see the planet, and then first episode of season 2, something will happen and you'll go, okay, that's not happening. I think we need to at some point, if not the planet, we need answers of some kind. We need to know how he's got the Force. We need to know why the Empire need him, what the end goal is. So there are a lot of questions there, and I think it would make sense to go back to the home world. But then you've got to, how do all the characters talk? Do they all talk backwards like Yoda, or do they have like an alien language? So there are places you could go with it. There's a lot of sort of blanks you could fill in, especially around like the Yoda character and the species and everything like that. But I'm not sure. I kind of want to, because I think it's a cool place for the story to go.
It's a very risky place.
Is it just going to go back to like a normal kind of space western, and you're going to have sort of desert planets and dusty towns with no one in? And I would like to see new things. I would like to see new planets. I would like to see it get more sprawling kind of thing. But I don't know how. I want answers, but I don't know. I'm kind of with you that I don't need to know the species name. I don't need to know this. I don't need to know that. So. But if Dave Filoni's doing it, we don't know. We don't know how much he's going to sort of geek out and come up with some new stuff for it. But it's cool. I think the only other thing we need to talk about really is the whole lava river scene, with the weirdest thing I've probably seen in Star Wars. And
weird droid.
There's been a lot of weird things in Star Wars, but this weird R2 unit with arms and legs and like a gondola stick, which probably has a name. Bizarre. I don't know why it had to be an R2 unit. I don't know why you couldn't have come up with a new droid. I don't know why it couldn't have been the new acquisitions droid from Return of the Jedi, which looks like it could probably be a good gondola droid. It was weird. It was really weird.
I was expecting like big boss reveal, like when it like stood up, and I was like, it's got arms and legs. It reminded me of something like fantasy. I know Star Wars is theory fantasy, but I'd expected like, oh, we need to pass the river to get through. Reminded me of Lord of the Rings. It reminded me of like old school fantasy. And here's your mysterious guide to take you through the land. Here's an R2 head and body, free with legs.
Because when it started breaking out of the thing, I thought it was like the little R2 thrusters at first, like from Attack of the Clones. Yeah. And then it stood up, and I was like, I don't quite understand the reasoning behind that. I mean, I get the point that it's probably just a droid that's been completely hodgepodged and MacGyvered into whatever the hell abomination it is, but you could have come up with something a bit different for that, I think. But then we have our glorious Terminator 2 moment with IG-11, which I guess was kind of set up again. There's a lot of things now I'm thinking back was set up for episode 1, the whole self-destruct thing, which came back into it. But it was a great moment. It was a nice character moment, and I think it was fitting how he ran through sort of every conceivable narrative in his head. It was like the Doctor Strange moment, right, from like Infinity War. Like, I've seen all these possible outcomes, and I need to die so that the child may live. It's cool. I like it.
I love the moment where Pedro Pascal's like, "We need you." He's like, "Do not be sad. I'm not sad. I've detected in your voice."
He's like, "I know now why you cry, but it is something I can never do."
It really, I think, like as I mentioned, it tied his story out together from beginning of the series, hates droids, to the droid that he let save him. He didn't want it to die because he wanted to not save it but keep it with him. I loved its sacrifice. Just when its leg went into the lava, it was the moment its body hit the lava where it did remind me of Terminator.
Yeah.
It reminded a little bit of that scene on Mustafar where there's that amazing weird droid which Anakin's like uses as a sort of a nuker. Yeah, that weird one. It reminded me of that like I guess in Star Wars droids are lava proof, which I'm pretty chill with. Well, some of them. And it was a great scene where the stormtroopers kind of realized that, oh, there's a bomb. And even better than that, we have maybe the best bit of dialogue from Apollo Creed in the entire series is get the baby to do the hand trick, hand trick, baby. And then it just waves at him and starts smiling, and he's like, it's not even that, it's that, I'm out of ideas now.
Yeah.
That bit, like that's just perfect comedy, I think.
I think that was when they were in the bar, wasn't it? In that building when there was sort of hold up in there. Was that where he tells him to do it, I think?
I think it's just after the IG-11 explosion.
Oh, is it? Okay.
TIE fighter.
Yeah.
When he's doing
that's it. Yeah, you're right.
From 2 strafe runs. Which it was a great scene. I thought this episode had it all. I think every character had their moments. They all progressed, had the character arcs done for the series. We got a great sort of farewell scene with not Mando and Lando, Mando and Apollo Creed. So I've seen them awful Elf on a Shelf memes.
Yes, yeah.
Of, like Lando on a Mando and stuff like that.
Oh, what's her face? Why do I keep forgetting her name? She's one of my favorite characters in it. Jesus.
Cara
Gina
Dune?
Carano, yes, she stays behind as well. Did she say she was going to stay with Apollo Creed, or she was going to?
I think he kind of asked her to be like his enforcer, but she just said
That's
she'd happily
Yeah.
stay on that planet. I think they'll both be back.
I really, really liked her character, and I know we didn't get loads about her character, but we get enough about her. We get like a history that she was a shock trooper and everything like that. Like she means business when she's in the action scenes. Like Jesus Christ, she's ripped to hell when she's holding that like Gatling gun. Like Christ, no, absolutely loved her character. I really like that because it is quite cut out the filler episodes. When you strip it down to the actual episodes that matter, it is a really small core cast, and that's what I quite like about it. Is that it was a big finale for a TV show. Like you had spectacle in there, you had like the stormtroopers in the streets, you had the running gunfights, you had the TIE fighter sequence, which is probably where they went, right, we're taking all this money and we're putting it on the CGI for this bit to make it look good. And it did look good. It looked fantastic. It looked comparable to the movies. And although it was sort of a relatively big finale for a TV show, in terms of Star Wars, I like that it does still feel like a really sort of small, contained story. It doesn't feel as big or as grandiose as the movies. And I kind of don't want it to be, because Rogue One, I was hoping for sort of a small contained story, but that did get massive towards the end of the space battles and tying into episode 4 and everything like that. I think Solo probably got close. That felt more self-contained, but obviously still had a movie budget behind it.
I think with this, I think that's what's more important was that, you know, maybe the idea of this was originally a film, but the concept of the Star Wars story is to be this standalone thing that ties into the Star Wars, you know, the Skywalker saga, whatever they want to call it. And it does tie into that because, you know, we've got remnants of the Empire, we've got some cool bounty hunter things. And ultimately, I think this series is delivered in that aspect. And now what it's done by winning over, you know, fans, critics, Disney Plus has been humongous. Definitely due to probably not the fact it's Disney, but having a show this good airing on it weekly has definitely probably led to more people getting it early than they might have wanted to originally. Obviously, we don't have it over here yet, but I'll be signing up on the day one. But also, I think one brilliant thing the Mandalorian has done is it's set the standards for not just Star Wars shows, but Disney Plus as a whole. So although I've got issues with them doing too many Marvel series, I've got not the biggest of hopes for Cassian. I know that's sort of massively understating it, but you know, it's in this really horrible sandwich position where it's been preceded by The Mandalorian and it's
Obi-Wan as well.
Well, it's going to be before Obi-Wan, so it's like the worst sandwich it can have. Not the fact no one wants to watch it, but you know, you're going to get a Mandalorian season 2, then Cassian, then Obi-Wan. That's going to be pretty.
The thing is, like, if I agree that if Cassian's great, I'll be the first one to admit it's great, and I hope it's good. But where I'm coming from is that is it a story that needs to be told? No, because to me, you get everything from Cassian. He's not. You say like Cassian Andor, like people are going to be like, who? It'll be like the Guardians of the Galaxy moment, like at the beginning of the first movie, like who? Yeah, it's a pointless series, but if it's good, I hope it is good. And I do think the future of Star Wars at the moment, anyway, is TV. I think they can do. You can pretty much get it looking theatrical quality. Yeah. I think you can pace it out better. I think you get better writing, and I think if we're reviewing Mandalorian as a whole now, sort of as a season 1, I won't say it's a home run or anything like that. As we said, that there were a good chunk of episodes that did feel like filler, that didn't need to be, that didn't filter into the main narrative. When you strip it back to the main narrative, episode 1, 2, 3, bits of 4, and then the last 2. It's a solid series, but there are 2 absolute dud episodes in there, which if people were watching it, I would pretty much just say skip past entirely if you wanted to save time. I think it's incredible with what they can do with TV now, but obviously we've seen bigger things like Game of Thrones and things like that. But I do think it's in good hands. I think, and this is where we're going to differ now, because obviously I don't like the sequel trilogy. You like 2 of the films of the at least. I was for the longest time, like even after 9, I was like, has Star Wars dead? Is it done for me? Has that ship sailed? Is it never coming back? And after watching this, like, I was over the moon. I was sort of back to me watching Rogue One again, which I really enjoyed. I love Rogue One. And, you know, old school Star Wars and everything like that. I don't think Star Wars has died. I think, for me, for the sequel trilogy, we just got bad Star Wars. We've just got writers that just haven't understood what the fan base wants and haven't understood Star Wars. Whereas I think with Filoni's not great. Like, we've seen the episodes that he's been tied to with this particular series, but I know he's done wonderful things with the Clone Wars and stuff like that. So I do think it is relatively safe in his hands. Jon Favreau as well, and Deborah Chow as well, and Taika Waititi just absolutely knocked this series out of the park with their directing. So, and I know that she's doing Obi-Wan, so I'm happy about that. If they can get writers and directors that get it and can make it good and can make it compelling, then hey, I'm back on board with Star Wars. Let's see what you can do. But I just don't need any more 7 to 9 in my life. If we get the next film trilogy and it's kind of following in the same vein, I'm just going to stick to Disney Plus for Star Wars for the future.
I think what it does, I mean, we're not going to sit here and discuss 7, 8, and 9 because we've done that so many times. We probably will do it properly one day. But I think what this is, I've kind of said this before, that the first, I guess, era of Disney Star Wars is kind of sort of ended now. That you've had the sequel trilogy come out. They've had Rogue One and Solo, and they think, I mean, obviously we love Rogue One. I don't mind Solo. That I've kind of, even as much as I love Rogue One, I've said, imagine if Rogue One was 8 episodes on TV. I think they've took the loss of Solo because that did bomb.
That should be TV. Looking at that, what they were teeing up with Darth Maul and Emilia Clarke.
Originally, that was TV. Originally, Rogue One's concept was TV. It was there all along. Mando's come in, and I think the best way for this franchise moving forwards, like I said, the sequel trilogy is now out of the way. That's done and dusted. Not the pressure's off, but it's like, okay, there's your main trilogy done. You can now do anything you want to do. Old Republic trilogy, fine. Origins of the Jedi, fine. Whatever you want to do. Please don't do it post Episode 9. I'm not talking 10 years after 9. I'm talking thousands of years after 9. Go for that Old Republic, whatever they want. I know they've said in January they want to announce the director of, quote, the next film, which we know is dated 2022, 2025, 2028. So I'm assuming it'll be a trilogy. So we know it was the Game of Thrones guys. There are rumours that have no sources that it's Jon Favreau. I think he'd be foolish to drop off Mando.
Yeah.
Obviously, the fact season 2 is filming. I think there is big future for Jon Favreau at Star Wars. I guess we can have a mini Kathleen Kennedy discussion. I think when her contract expires in 2021, I think she'll walk. I mean, I like what she's done. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for her. I think also we forget that she's a famous film producer. And she's been locked down on this one franchise for, 2012 George Lucas asked her to take over?
I'm not going to take anything away from her as a producer. Like, obviously, her credentials speak for themselves, the talent that she's worked with. But to me, she sees... I'm not going to say Kevin Feige doesn't see Marvel as a property either, but she sees Star Wars as numbers, as...
She's a proper... She's more so a producer... Right, so Kevin Feige is a producer, but he is at heart I don't want to say storyteller, but there's two. They're both producers, but they're so different from the other. One is a business, not business producer. That sounds horrible, but she's.
You get that impression from her when she talks. Like she's
she is a CEO more so than a. I mean, Kevin Feige is officially made the CEO this year, right? Of Marvel.
Yeah.
But before, his role has been like not exec producer, but he's like the head of the story group. He is Marvel. I think what they need going forwards. I think when 2012 obviously will differ on this. When she took over, Star Wars, it wasn't dead. It's never been dead. But obviously there wasn't a new trilogy for a start. But when she took over in 2012, there was literally just Clone Wars, and the prequel still had a bad rep. I think they've restored it and made it not as big as it ever was. I don't think it ever can reach them heights. Even in the 90s, it wasn't as big as it was in the 70s and 80s. It's gone up against Marvel this decade. There's no hiding that Marvel is what Star Wars is now towards it was in the 70s.
Yeah.
I think Kathleen is going to find... I think she's set it up for the future very well. And I think what it now does, it's going to give her a window. If she wants to walk, then what I would hope they choose to do would be to kind of split her role up into 2 or 3. Like, the similar comparisons. I mean, the football... I know this is completely off topic. The football team I support had a really bad CEO for many years. When he left last year, they split his role up into 3. One guy was head of the football stuff on the pitch. One guy head of transfers, the third guy, the finance, the accountant of the 3. If you take a big role like that, split it up, you can bring in your head of, story group, whatever. You can then bring in the business side of it and other sides. And if you have a clear collaborative team right at the top, more so than individual, I think that can help. I think she's done a good job. Again, obviously, we'll have our different opinions on the films, but I think 2021 will be the right point for her to walk away. I think she's ultimately someone that probably not doesn't want to do it. 'Cause you can tell she does love it, but I can't imagine her not ever wanting to go into. I know this sounds really rude, but like Kevin Feige came on board. They said he's going to do a Star Wars film as a producer. I'll believe it when I see it. I couldn't picture him not doing Marvel. In the same way that, because he is Marvel, it'd be weird if he like said, "Oh, I'm going to produce 5. Here's an Oscar drama. Here's a foreign film." I couldn't picture him producing something that's not Marvel. And I said, Kathleen Kennedy, she's probably someone that misses producing like films. Obviously, she did every Spielberg film. It must have been weird for him to have not done films with her for a while too. And there's obviously a great discussion to be had. But I think I would love to see Favreau not in a. I don't want to see Favreau sitting on a boardroom, but I was certainly like him and Filoni's been teed up as Lucas's protege forever. George Lucas said it 10 years ago. That awful Clone Wars film came out. He's now head of animation at Lucasfilm. He's co-created this show with with Favreau, and he's had his first dig at live action directing. And I liked episode 1, didn't like episode 5. I think he's someone that when the time comes for promotions, I think he could have a bigger role. He wouldn't be a head of. I could see him being a head of story group, storytelling, whatever. But I certainly see him and Favreau as a really big duo for hopefully the future of the saga, well, not saga, Star Wars. I think he's kind of been built up over the years to. I mean, obviously, he was Lucas's number 2. When Kathleen Kennedy took over, she promoted him to head of animation. So he's ran that for many years. Now he's got his dig at live action. So I'm intrigued to see what comes next. And I think the beauty of Mandalorian is that it seems to be not telly as a whole, but a stepping stone that Deborah Chow did 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. And they've said to her, listen, you can direct the entirety of the Obi-Wan series now. Obviously, the scripts have been written previously from someone else. Ewan's producing it, but, we want to give you all 6 episodes, not let's split it up across 4 people kind of thing. And I think TV gives people the window to make an impact. And I think where Star Wars not has failed, but obviously, Colin Trevorrow, Gareth Edwards to a degree where the reshoots had to take place more so because of the tone. Phil Miller. I think the beauty of Kathleen Kennedy is she's kind of not put hands up said it's wrong, but she's not. I'm not going to allow this. So many productions like what was that awful Fant Vorstick? This director is a mess. Will reshoot the entire film with someone else. He was actually meant to do a Star Wars film at one point. Ironic. I like the fact that they've been like, no, this isn't working. Off you go. I'd love to turn Ron Howard to do Solo from the beginning, but I like the fact they gave these young directors a chance. But now, obviously, where we are, telly's the chance to give them. Telly's where you give them that chance to work their way up. I know you don't like Rian Johnson. More so his Star Wars film. Obviously, he started off on telly, shorts, Breaking Bad, off Breaking Bad, he got Looper, off Looper, he got Star Wars. I think telly for the future, not just Star Wars, but for film, is where you can create careers. And I really hope they can do this via their new series. I know this is so off tangent. I've spoken.
No, it's good. No, it's good because we're talking about it as a whole. I think that I think you are going to have good TV with Star Wars. I think you are going to have bad TV with Star Wars. I think it ultimately depends. I don't want them now. I don't want them to like Loki series, Vision and Wonder, What If. I don't want them to do that to Star Wars. I still think it needs time to breathe, but I know that we have got a good few years before we get the next cinematic trilogy, and they are going to pace those out now. We haven't got like a film every year. TV is probably going to take that place, but I don't want them to just crank out every single spin-off series with every single conceivable character you can think of. It's got to be a character where there's room to tell more of that story. Mando's a brand new thing, a lot of intrigue there. I'm happy with that. That's fine. Obi-Wan, there's loads of room in between episode 3 and 4, plus bringing Ewan back's massive, so that'll be great. Cassian Andor, don't need it. So that's an example of one I could do without. Off the top of my head, what else could you do? What other ones do you do? Like a Plagueis and Palpatine prequel series, which will never happen. Maybe a Darth Vader one in between 3 and 4. Like that'd be huge.
Wouldn't need
it. I think that you've got to cherry pick which characters and which eras you do and everything. Maybe a Rise of the First Order series that could be good because there's a lot that needs to be mined in between 6 and 7. So,
and that's what I'm hoping with Disney Plus is that it should be when they announced the spin-off films, the concept was to enhance your experience of watching the. the choices they make. It's weird to get a prequel to a prequel with Cassian. Again, if it proves me wrong, great. I'd love. Obviously, if it's great, I'm going to love it anyway. But there are stories to tell, and you can do new ones. And, Star Wars Rebels, shaky first few episodes in season 1.
Mhm.
Not felt very Disney-ish, but sometimes in season 1s they're a lot slower to get going.
Yeah.
When you get to season sort of 2, especially 3, you've got this is quality production. The production, but Clone Wars was the most expensive animated show of all time when it was starting. Rebels isn't as expensive as Clone Wars, but it looks incredible. And by the end of the seasons, you see the quality of that animation, of the storytelling. And they were all new characters. They shoehorned a couple of cameos in here, there. They brought back Thrawn, and he was a fantastic villain. The people that read the books enjoyed him. They've now done a new trilogy of books based on how he's come into new canon in the Empire. They're doing another trilogy of books, which is going to be his origin. And that's all off the original creator of Thrawn. That was him coming back. Do you want to rewrite him for this modern era, which is cool? And that's the thing. There is potential there. It's about getting the right character for the right production. Like I said, you can have a cameo or two. That's fine. But like the Obi-Wan was the most obvious choice. If you ask any Star Wars fan in the entire world, what was the one person you wanted to see come back? It was always going to be Ewan McGregor. And the problem is now and it would have been Boba Fett as well. Boba Fett is now irrelevant. Now I've got Mandalorian. Everyone's got a new favorite Mandalorian guy. It's kind of the two big ones have been crossed off the list. Like, now what? Like, defining new movie.
The 3 that were talked about, there was Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, and we've kind of mashed Yoda and Boba Fett into the Mandalorian, and then Obi-Wan's happening anyway on TV. So
there's a wealth of opportunity for the right storytellers to come along, and the fact Jon Favreau, him and Filoni knew each other from doing Clone Wars. They kind of had this idea together. They pitched it together. They got a film. It's a series. If there's other people out there, to be fair to Lucasfilm, they seem like the kind of company that would listen. If someone's got an idea, they'd probably listen to them, run with it. I would love to see a Solo TV series.
Yeah.
As I said before, Solo should have really been TV at the very beginning. It was, the famous George Lucas live-action Star Wars, which he had apparently 100 episodes planned. That was one of the story arcs, as was obviously Rogue One. So there is, stuff in the archives for them to pick. I'd love them to avoid stuff like Darth Maul, because that was finished in Rebels, and we're going to get him back in Clone Wars.
I think if you did Han Solo, you'd have to bring him back, though, because you need to tie that up from the movies at least.
Or at least have the villainous, what were they called, the Syndicate, or might have been Mission Impossible. Yes, there's a lot of potential for Disney Plus, and I think, like I'm saying, when I say it's the end of the first era 2 of Disney Star Wars is Disney Plus, and this whatever trilogy they plan on doing next.
Yeah,
there's a lot of potential, and I really hope that new trilogy is Old Republic. I've not played the games. I've obviously read bits and bobs over the past. I've not sat there, put 100 hours into games, but that is the era that is deemed best to adapt, but also the most obvious choice to adapt into a trilogy as well.
Just want some new stuff.
Yes.
New stuff. That's all I want. I want to do away with all this nostalgia now. We've got it. We're on board. Don't need it. If you do an Old Republic trilogy, that'll be brand new stuff, completely new stuff. I hope at least. But maybe
there'd be tie-ins, like just concepts of, I guess, the Force and the Sith. And
I guess you got to have Sith, you got to have Jedi, you got to have lightsaber. Like, I get that, but just new story, new characters, completely new era, 1,000 years removed from what we've seen before. Could be new, could be interesting, but I do think for right now, the future of Star Wars is on TV. I really enjoyed Mandalorian. I won't say I loved it. There were a lot of problems that I had with it still, and it was shaky in finding its footing. But by the end of it, it did win me over, and I am looking forward to. I can honestly say I am looking forward to season 2 and where it goes with this. But I'm not going to say I'm won over by Star Wars just yet. I'm intrigued, and I'm like, right, okay, we've had shaky times. Moving forward now, show me what you've got, and that's kind of where I'm at with Star Wars at the moment. Hopefully the TV shows are good. Hopefully it's a reason to get Disney Plus. But I think I've pretty much said everything I can on episode 8, the season finale of Mandalorian, unless you've got anything else to round off on.
Same here.
We'll be buying on DVD when it comes out. I can honestly say that, and hope we do.
I hope they release it.
Oh, well, that's the thing, isn't it, with streaming? Yeah, that's a good point.
Netflix do their, was it like a year and a half after their release on Netflix?
That was a massive wait until that came out. But yeah, no, that's a good point. But yeah, that'll do it for our review on Mandalorian. We will be back next year with Mandalorian Season 2. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of Mandalorian. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you have any problems with it? What are your speculation for Season 2? Anything Mandalorian or Star Wars related, please do let us know. We have a lot more content coming very shortly, actually. We've got some big videos coming out, which we're not going to announce right now, but look for those in the next few days in the lead up to 2020. And then we'll be getting back into movie reviews again. There's movies coming out New Year's Eve for us, and then it'll be the push towards Oscar season. A lot of big movies coming out, a lot of ones I'm really looking forward to. So, as I said, hit the subscribe button, follow us for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, discussions, and everything else in between. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.